Hello, my fellow quarantiners, quarantinites, whatever the proper nomenclature is for that. I'm back again with another video recommendations. It's not gaming this time, it is movies this time. I'm gonna start off with Netflix, go through Hulu and Amazon Prime. A lot of these are cult classics. A lot of these are movies that may have flown under your radar, movies and television series. These are just some deep cuts, some deeper finds that you wouldn't necessarily see on a lot of lists. So starting off with Netflix, Beyond the Mat. Beyond the Mat is, of course, I'm going to start with something wrestling related. Beyond the Mat is available on Netflix now, which is pretty cool because it's not been easy to find online. It's been mostly available on hard copies like DVD and Blu-ray. But this is a dope documentary. This is a documentary about pro wrestling at large. At the time, this was done in like the late 90s, early 2000s, I believe. No, not even 2000s, it's the late 90s. This was at the peak of the Monday Night Wars between WCW and WWF at the time. And this is an independent documentary. This isn't funded by the WWE. This isn't funded by WCW at the time. This was a legit third-party documentary that got access that frankly has never been given since to a third-party entity. So it's a lot of craziness, a lot of infamous spots in the documentary, such as the I Quit match with The Rock and Mick Foley. That was that was a pretty interesting moment in the documentary. Whether it be Jake the Snake's struggles with addiction and just a lot of the ins and outs of pro wrestling at the time. So definitely recommend that one. Next, Ninja Turtles 1 and 2. This is a double one. I'm giving you a two for this one. If you haven't seen these original ones, the original ones that came out in the 90s, the first one is, of course, the best one. You can't go wrong with Ninja Turtles 1. Ninja Turtles 2, a lot of people think that was a step down in terms of quality in the movies. I disagree. I think it's a little just apples and oranges. Ninja Turtles 1 was a great cult classic and was a little more darker. Ninja Turtles 2, they figured out, hey, we need to sell some action figures with this franchise. So the movie's a little more kid-friendly, a lot more goofy, not as dark and serious as the first one, but I love them both. I love Ninja Turtles in animatronic suits that Jim Henson created. So those are my turtles, personally. So if you have a chance, watch them both. They're both awesome, in my opinion. First one, you get Ninja Kick the Damn Rabbit. And second one, you get Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go. Next on my list, Mystery Science Theater to the Gauntlet. I'm a huge Mystery Science Theater fan. I always have been since I was a little kid. And they relaunched the franchise, and I'm really hyped on that. It was a great little relaunch. It was crowdfunded. I was part of that, which was a real dope experience. And it's like a full-length feature with they call it the Gauntlet, so it's more than one horrible movie with fun commentary. And if you like old kitschy movies that are made fun of the entire time, then Mystery Science Theater: The Gauntlet's one for you. Team Foxcatcher. Team Foxcatcher, if you haven't seen the movie Foxcatcher with Steve Carell, it is a crazy story about a guy who owns a wrestling team, like a collegiate wrestling team. And not as all as it seems, and things start to get dark real quick. This is a thing that really happened. So if you've seen the movie Foxcatcher, you need to see the documentary Team Foxcatcher. It goes a little more in depth with actually stuff that really happened. So definitely check out Team Foxcatcher on Netflix. The Rugrats movie. The Rugrats movie is now on Netflix, which is a personal favorite of mine. The Rugrats movie, the first Rugrats movie that ever came out. This was a big deal back in the 90s when our Nickelodeon shows weren't necessarily like them popping up in any sort of feature-length production was unheard of back then. I mean, there wasn't as many straight-to-home video releases as there are now. And the Rugrats introduced a new character for the first time in a while with Tommy Got a Brother. And I just love it. Busta Rhymes is the voice of the Reptar Wagon. That's pretty cool. But if you like 90s nostalgia, the Rugrats movie is definitely the one to go to. It's fun, and if you got some kids, introduce them to the Rugrats. I think that they're evergreen. Next, this movie just came out, but it is also based off of a 90s IP, the Hey Arnold the Jungle movie. I like this movie because Hey Arnold was one of my my two favorite Nicktoons growing up were Hey Arnold and Rocko's Modern Life, both of which had releases on Netflix. You know what? I'm gonna include Rocko's Modern Life movie as well that came out on Netflix too with the Jungle movie. Because Hey Arnold movie and the Rocko's movie came out pretty much around the same time. Both my favorite cartoons. I love the Rocko movie because it has to deal with a lot of current issues, which I thought was really cool of them. And I love the Hey Arnold movie because we finally figure out what happens to Arnold's parents, which I was wondering for the past 30 years or so. So I'm glad they're able to clear that up. I mean, the show's not that old yet, but around there. Devil Next Door. The Devil Next Door is a great documentary, highly recommend it. In short, it's pretty much just a documentary about a man who is accused of being one of the most evil and sadistic executioners in World War II Nazi Germany during the concentration camps and whatnot. It's really on the edge of your seat, keeps you guessing. There are points where you think, oh, for sure, he is that Nazi. And then there's literally the next second they give you evidence like, maybe he isn't. Maybe this was just a case of mistaken identity. Highly recommend this movie. It's a documentary. It's a few episodes, I think, but it's a lot of twists and turns. I know you guys like your crime documentaries, and this one was on a national scale in terms of international relations. So definitely check that one out. The original Wicker Man. Not the Nicolas Cage one, although that one is great in its own way. It's a different one. But this is the one I'm talking about, the Christopher Lee one, the one that started it all, where this one is actually legitimately like terrifying. And when I say terrifying, it's not like horror, like ghosts and stuff and like people out there like serial killers and whatnot. It is a psychological thriller. You feel very odd coming out of the movie, and Christopher Lee is amazing in it. So I'm a big Christopher Lee fan, so definitely check out the original Wicker Man. Power Rangers, the original series. So the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series is available on Netflix, all of them. And the original ones, I should say. And I loved this show growing up, and I know you guys did too. It definitely doesn't age incredibly well. It's definitely not as serious and cool as we thought it was back in the day, but it's fun still. It's definitely fun still, like seeing the original 5, then growing to 6 Rangers with the addition of the Green Ranger, and the Green Ranger becomes a White Ranger. And I'm not gonna ruin it for you. It gets pretty intense towards season 3, season 4. So the original Power Rangers series, definitely check that out. So Hulu, these are all the things that you could see on Hulu. A little shorter of a list. Overlord, I love this movie. Overlord is about pretty much what would a zombie outbreak be if it took place in World War II. It features, I believe it was Nazi Germany, that a group of American soldiers have to do an undercover mission behind enemy lines, and they happen to stumble across a Nazi zombie outbreak, which isn't too fun, but a great movie nonetheless. It definitely flew under the radar. Highly recommend that one. 50-50. I enjoy this movie, and if you want to watch this movie, if you are quarantined with somebody special, this is the movie to watch it. This is the movie to watch with them. It is about a cancer patient who has to basically go through it with his best friend. And Seth Rogen's in it, and he's a personal favorite of mine. And it deals with a lot of serious issues with how your friends help you through serious issues like cancer and the sense of mortality. And I really like it. It's a touching movie, so it ends, and it has a nice little ending, so definitely check it out. Ooh, we're going from touching to scary. Next, Wrinkles the Clown, the documentary. This documentary I came across from a recommendation from a friend. That documentary is interesting to say the least. It's about a clown. This is a real thing. It's a documentary on Hulu. It's a clown that parents can call. Like a real clown, like a scary clown that their parents can call if their children are acting up. So if clowns are your thing, and if the Joker just came out recently, this is a legitimate boogeyman that parents could call if their kids were acting up. So, and the ending is not what you'd expect at all. So highly recommend that one. Next up, Prince of Egypt. Now, I love this movie. Prince of Egypt was pretty cool in my opinion. It should be bigger in my opinion. Prince of Egypt should be bigger in my personal opinion because it was a great telling of an old story, Moses and Pharaoh, let my people go, whatnot. And the animation is great. The voice acting is incredible. Some of the best. I mean, when they split the ocean and that whole thing was great for animation at the time. I don't know why this movie isn't like up there with like Lion King and stuff like that, but I guess because it's not a Disney movie theoretically. So definitely check out Prince of Egypt. Moving on to Amazon Prime streaming service. So if you have Amazon Prime, a lot of you people do, check these out. No Holds Barred. We're going back to another wrestling movie. No Holds Barred. This is another one of those titles that's so bad it's great. This is the first movie Hulk Hogan ever appeared in. Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan wrote this movie in a weekend once. It was at his house, and who knows what happened between them. I'm sure some substances were shared, but it shows. This movie is something to watch, to say the least. It's Hulk Hogan versus Debo. Yes, Tiny Lister, the guy that plays Debo, plays the main villain in this movie, Zeus. It's an insane movie, so definitely check out No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. No, not the Disney one, although that movie is great. I would recommend this one though, because it was during a time where horror movies, this is during the silent era, by the way, with the original Lon Chaney, the man of a million faces, or 1,000, depending on who you ask. Lon Chaney was amazing. He was able to do stuff, acrobatics and acting with his face that not a lot of people can do to this day. And he did a lot of his own makeup. Like the makeup you see in this movie was done by him. And it's one of the more, and you know, I respect silent movies because they had to do so much more to get the point across than having dialogue, you know, than having the benefit of sound. So they had to get so many more points across with just their eyes and their faces. And half the face was concealed with Lon Chaney, so he had to try extra. So if you want to watch a good original horror movie from long time ago, then definitely check out The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Star Trek II, going back to Star Trek, the original Star Trek with William Shatner. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. This movie not only features one of the most iconic movies in scenes in movie history, but it's also a huge step up from the original Star Trek movie. I saw the original Star Trek movie when I was a kid. I hated it. It was boring. Nothing happened. And they realized that, and they switched it up for the sequel. A lot more action, a lot more fast pace, and Khan, one of the greatest bad guys in movie history. So definitely check out Wrath of Khan, Star Trek II. My Friend Dahmer. My Friend Dahmer is an interesting movie because it's based off of a comic book. A guy who was in the same class growing up as Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer, wrote a comic book based off of his experiences with Jeffrey Dahmer as a kid. He didn't know him when he started murdering people, but he wrote about his experiences of being in the class with one of the strangest people ever existed. And it's a dope comic, so I definitely recommend reading the book first. And then the movie that it came out not too long ago, and it's pretty good. You know, it does a great job of hinting towards things. It never actually shows Jeffrey Dahmer like in the act of anything, like, because it was too early. He wasn't killing people then. But it was interesting to see like what was going to be eventually one of the biggest murderers in history. So definitely check out My Friend Dahmer on Amazon Prime. Next up, Nosferatu, the original Nosferatu. This movie I like because, again, it's another silent horror movie. A lot more needed to be done to get a point across. And this is back during a period of time when movies meant something. Like when people wanted to go make a movie, this was like an ordeal. This was an expedition. You didn't have digital effects. You didn't have the benefit of controlled sets, you know? Well, I mean, when I say controlled sets, I mean the environment. Like you didn't have the benefit of a green screen or a big pool that you could do these movies in. Like you really had to go out and do it. You had to go out and figure this thing out, how to figure out how to make a vampire, you know? And they did. And the look is great. The look holds up to this day. And this is the basis for everything. Dracula, Interview with the Vampire. I mean, you can't really go, it's an OG in the horror movie genre. Check it out. Next up, this is going off of Nosferatu, but this movie is called Shadow of the Vampire. In Shadow of the Vampire, it features Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich. In my opinion, two of the greatest performances of their careers. Willem Dafoe plays Nosferatu, and this is and one of my favorite movies types of movies are movies that are about making movies. And this movie is about the production of Nosferatu. But if Nosferatu was a legitimate, featured a legitimate vampire, like it wasn't an actor, like what if Nosferatu was a real vampire that they cast? And Willem Dafoe is incredible in it, highly recommend it. For some reason, it's not super readily available. It took me a long time to find it when I first saw it. True Grit. I love True Grit. True Grit is one of my favorite movies ever. It's a Coen Brothers movie. It features Jeff Bridges in one of my favorite roles. Matt Damon's in it too. And he plays Buster, no, that's that's not it. No, because Buster Scruggs was a Coen Brothers movie he just made. But no, anyway, Jeff Bridges plays one of the greatest cowboy roles I've ever seen in my life. Matt Damon plays somebody unlikable for the first time, which I didn't even know he could do. And Coen Brothers and Jeff Bridges, you know, that's peas and carrots. You know, I love those two together. Band of Brothers Season 1. Now, if you don't have HBO Go or HBO Now, or HBO in general, you missed this one. But for some reason, they put it on Amazon Prime now, and I highly, highly, highly recommend this one. This one was done with a lot of the same people that were involved in the making of Saving Private Ryan, and this is a series that came out on HBO a long time ago that documents a unit during World War II. This one was done incredibly. There's a lot of up-and-coming actors in it that turned out to be big names, and like Rami Malek, I think his name is. I forget how you pronounce it, but you know he was in the Queen movie. He's in the new James Bond movie. A lot of the guy who plays Ross in Friends is in it for some reason. And yeah, it's a dope series. So definitely check it out. Anyway, this was a longer video. Thank you for sitting with me. But those are my recommendations. Check these out, and you know, I don't think you'll be disappointed with any of them.